My name is Bella Ambar, and I'm 27 years old. Tonight, I should be surrounded by the people I love, celebrating my birthday in a fancy restaurant. Instead, I sit alone at a table for six, waiting for family who won't show. Margot. It's one of Chicago's hottest spots, the kind of place where you make reservations months in advance. The air smells of rich, aged wine and grilled meats, and everything around me is alive, except for my table. I tap my fingernail against the glass, my phone in front of me, watching the minutes tick by. I've checked it 100 times already. Still nothing. No text, no call, not even a generic, sorry, can't make it message. I take another glance at the empty chairs surrounding me, and I feel it again, the ache of being forgotten. The waiter stops by once more, his voice gentle, apologetic. Should we continue holding the table for your party? I look up at him, forcing a smile. He's a stranger, but the sympathy in his eyes makes the moment feel too raw. I want to tell him the truth, that my family doesn't care enough to come, that this isn't the first time they've let me down. But I don't. Instead, I nod, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. Please, just a little longer. The waiter walks away, and I focus on the flickering candlelight on my chocolate torte. It's almost laughable, really. 27 candles, 27 years, and tonight I'm supposed to be celebrating the success of Lamina Skin Company, my clean beauty startup. 3 weeks ago, I secured a $1.4 million seed funding round, the kind of validation I've been dreaming of for years. After 4 years of grinding, of working out of a cramped apartment, maxing out credit cards, living off ramen noodles and endless coffee, someone finally believed in me. And still, my family? Silence. It's a pattern I've grown used to. 3 years ago, when I was 24 and still struggling to get by, my younger brother Brendan got his first car, a brand new truck, $22,000. Dad co-signed without a second thought, but when I needed help with student loans, I was on my own. At 23, when I barely scraped together enough for rent, Dad told me, "You're a smart girl, Bella. You'll figure it out." And I did. But it cost me. I take a sip of water, the cool liquid doing little to calm the tightness in my chest. The silence hangs heavy over me. Another 20 minutes pass. My heart sinks, but I tell myself they're just running late. They're probably on their way. It's a lie, but it's the only one I can hold on to. The waiter approaches again, checking the time. "I'm sorry, miss, but we'll need to clear the table soon. Are you sure your party is still—" Before he finishes, a voice interrupts, smooth and deep. "Excuse me, I don't mean to intrude, but I couldn't help but notice. Is it your birthday?" I look up. A man stands there, tall, with dark hair just beginning to silver at the temples. He wears a perfectly tailored navy suit, and his warm brown eyes meet mine with genuine curiosity. I hesitate for a moment, unsure of how to respond. "Yes, it's my birthday," I say, trying to steady my voice. He smiles softly, almost sympathetically. "May I?" He gestures to the empty seat across from me. It's unexpected, and yet something in his tone makes me nod before I can stop myself. He settles into the chair, setting a leather messenger bag beside him. "Nathan Whitmore," he introduces himself, extending a hand. "Bella Ambar," I say, shaking his hand. My voice sounds steadier than I feel, but there's something about his presence, the way he doesn't push or ask questions immediately, that makes me feel safe, seen. Nathan looks at the torte with its unlit candles. "Happy birthday, Bella. What brings you here tonight?" I almost laugh at the question, but it's not out of humor. It's out of disbelief. What brought me here? The thought of celebrating with my family. "I just closed a major funding round for my company," I say, the words slipping out easier than I expect. "Thought my family might want to celebrate with me." Nathan raises an eyebrow, his gaze never leaving mine. "And they didn't show?" I nod, my throat tight. I swallow, forcing a smile that feels fragile, as if it might shatter if I hold it too long. "They're not coming," I whisper, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Nathan doesn't say anything at first. Instead, he leans back slightly, his eyes studying me, and for the first time tonight, I feel seen. Not judged, not pitied, just seen. "Well then," Nathan says, breaking the silence, "they're missing something extraordinary." His words are like a balm to a wound I didn't realize was so raw. He looks at me, genuinely interested. "Tell me about your company. What's Lamina all about?" I find myself pulling out my phone, showing him our website. Clean, modern, and bright. I swipe to a photo of our hero product, the vitamin C serum I spent 2 years perfecting. I start talking about the product line, the clean ingredients, the mission to change the beauty industry. For the first time in hours, I smile. Nathan listens intently, scrolling through the photos with real interest. Remarkable, he says when he looks up, his smile warm and full of admiration. Someone should absolutely be celebrating your brilliance tonight. The sincerity in his voice makes me feel something stir inside me, a sense of pride I almost forgot how to feel. He gestures to the candles. Make a wish, he says gently. I close my eyes, but instead of wishing for my family's approval, something I know will never come, I make a different wish. I wish for the strength to stop waiting for their validation, to stop shrinking myself to fit into their narrow view of success. When I blow out the candles, Nathan leans forward, his voice low. What did you wish for? To stop waiting, I whisper, more to myself than to him. The waiter returns, bringing 2 plates of chocolate torte. Nathan and I share the dessert, and for the first time tonight, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time, connection. We talk about business, about my journey, and about the quiet sacrifices I've made for my family over the years. I find myself telling Nathan everything, about Brendan's truck that I'm still paying off, about the family dinners where they always talked about Brendan's latest scheme while I silently supported them. And then I say something I never thought I'd say aloud. The strangest part is, I still love them, despite everything. Nathan's expression softens. Love and boundaries aren't mutually exclusive, Bella, he says, his voice firm but kind. In fact, the healthiest love requires them. His words hang in the air, and I realize they might be the truth I've been waiting to hear. As we finish dessert, I realize this night, this strange and unexpected encounter with a stranger who had no reason to care, might just be the beginning of something different. 3 days after my birthday dinner at Margot, I sat at my desk, the soft hum of my office in the background. The success of Lamina Skin Company was no longer just a dream. It was a reality, and a massive one. My company was growing, reaching new heights, and I was on the verge of launching a product that could change everything. Yet here I was, surrounded by charts and figures, feeling more alone than ever. I'd hoped for some acknowledgement, some recognition from the people who were supposed to be proud of me, but I knew better. I had spent my entire life as an afterthought, a backdrop to Brendan's adventures. When I was 15, Brendan was 13, and my father took him on a 2-week deep-sea fishing trip to the Florida Keys. When I asked why I wasn't invited, Dad just ruffled my hair and said, "Boys need adventure, sweetheart. Girls need stability." I was supposed to be content with being the responsible one, the one who kept everything together while they showered all their attention on Brendan, the golden child. I'd watched as Brendan got whatever he wanted, effortlessly, a new truck when he turned 16, a summer abroad to study business, even a place at a prestigious university while I scrambled for scholarships, and when I finally got into Ohio State, my parents barely even made time to visit. But when it came to money, to loans, to supporting his latest brilliant business venture, I was there, and I didn't even get a thank you. The worst part was how little they acknowledged my own hard work. Last year, when I launched Lamina, a company that had taken me 4 years of sleepless nights, countless sacrifices, and self-doubt to build, my parents didn't even send a congratulatory message, not even a good job or we're proud of you. Instead, Brendan's new startup failed again, and of course, my parents sent him money without hesitation. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen in front of me, the numbers for Lamina glowing back at me, a stark contrast to the emptiness I felt inside. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I had learned to stop crying for things I could never change. It didn't help. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and opened the family group chat that had been silent since my last attempt at contact. "Mom, how's your company doing, Bella? We're so proud of you. Brendan got an investment offer from his friend at that startup. It's exciting." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard, unsure if I should reply. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending. My success wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough for them. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. He'd sent me a screenshot from a business journal, one of many publications that had featured Lamina recently. The headline read, "Bella Ambar revolutionizes clean beauty." I smiled, the words striking a chord deep inside me. For once, someone was acknowledging my hard work. For once, someone wasn't just patting me on the head and telling me I was a good girl for getting through it. Nathan had been a quiet anchor in my life. Since that night at Margot, he'd supported me in ways I didn't know I needed. We talked about everything, my struggles with my family, my ambitions, my fears, and with him, I felt seen, really seen. His messages were simple but steady, offering encouragement without asking for anything in return. It felt like the opposite of my family's approach. Instead of taking, Nathan gave. I sent him a quick reply. Thanks for always being there, Nathan. It means more than you know. Then a message from Mom popped up. I frowned as I opened it. Your father and I were talking. We'd like you to join us for dinner tomorrow. We want to catch up. We miss you. I felt a flicker of anger rise within me. 3 years without a single meaningful conversation, and now they wanted to catch up? I put my phone down, standing up from my desk, my thoughts racing. Dinner. Dinner was always their way of rewriting the narrative, of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't want to go, but I had to. I had to face it. This was my moment to set the boundaries, to stop letting them walk all over me. I took a deep breath and sent my mother a message. I'll come, but there are conditions. Her reply came almost immediately. Conditions? I typed slowly, carefully. No business talk. No requests for financial help. I'm coming as your daughter, not your ATM. The message sat there for a moment, and I stared at it, wondering what her response would be. I felt a twinge of uncertainty, but I quickly squashed it. It was time. It was time to stop pretending. Finally, her reply came. Of course, darling. Let's just enjoy a nice dinner. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Her response was too easy, too practiced. But this time, I wasn't going to let it go. I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. As I put my phone down, a sense of calm washed over me. This was the turning point. I wasn't the quiet, invisible sister anymore. I wasn't going to keep waiting for their approval. I had built something on my own, and I was proud of it. I had Nathan by my side, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally standing tall. The evening of the family dinner arrived, and as I walked into the upscale restaurant, I couldn't shake the weight of the situation. I was about to sit down with the people who had, in many ways, ignored and even hindered my growth. My father, always so distant. My mother, full of calculated warmth, and Brendan. My brother, whose constant failures were somehow excused by my parents, but whose success would always overshadow mine. I walked into the restaurant, taking a moment to steady myself before stepping forward. The hostess led me to a private table in the back, where my parents were already seated. The usual look of control was in my mother's eyes, and my father sat across from her, the faint lines on his face deepening in the soft light. Bella, sweetheart, you look stunning, my mother cooed as I took my seat. She wore a flawless smile, the kind of smile that masked everything she couldn't say. I nodded and greeted them, taking my seat. The waiter brought over the menus, and we sat in awkward silence for a moment, the space between us heavy with things unsaid. I didn't know how to start. Should I confront them? Should I wait for them to speak first? In the end, I decided to stay calm and let them make the first move. It didn't take long. My mother cleared her throat, adjusting the glass of wine in front of her. Bella, we've been talking, and we really want to support you more, she began, her voice soft but insistent, as if she were trying to make me feel guilty for not just accepting their support. We know Lamina is doing well. We're so proud of you, truly. Pride. It was always the word they used, yet I never felt it. My father chimed in, his voice low and measured. We'd love to discuss how we could help you expand. You know Brendan is always looking for new business opportunities, and he's asked for some funding for a new venture. There it was, the same old game. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. I took a deep breath, looking from my mother to my father, and then to Brendan, who had been quiet up until now, fiddling with his glass. I could already feel the pressure building in my chest, but this time I wouldn't back down. Thank you, I said, my voice calm but firm. But as I've told you before, I'm not mixing family and business anymore. Their faces faltered, and for a moment, my father's stern expression softened. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand to stop him. No, this time, I mean it. I looked straight at Brendan, whose eyes shifted uncomfortably. I'm happy to talk about our relationship, to rebuild it, but I'm not going to let you use me anymore. I'm not a backup plan for your failures. I built this company on my own, and it's not up for negotiation. Brendan's jaw tightened, but I could see the flicker of shame in his eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. My mother looked shocked, but her expression quickly returned to its practiced veneer of sweetness. "You're being too harsh," she said, her voice laced with an edge. "We only want to help, Bella. This is your family. We're trying to be part of your success." I stared at her, feeling the old resentment bubbling up. I had spent so many years shrinking to fit their expectations, feeling invisible in my own family. But not anymore. I was done playing the role of the dutiful daughter who quietly carried their burdens without asking for anything in return. "I'm not asking you to support me the way you think you should," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need your money, your business deals, or your manipulation. What I need is for you to show up, for once, to be there for me without expecting something in return." I felt a surge of power inside me, the weight of years of frustration finally giving way to clarity. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I came because I'm trying to understand where we go from here. There was a long silence, the tension between us palpable. Finally, my father spoke, his voice surprisingly soft. "You've always been the one to handle things, Bella," he said, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "Maybe we haven't given you the support you needed, but we're trying. We just didn't know how to show it." His words caught me off guard. For the first time, it felt like he was actually acknowledging my feelings. I wanted to believe him, but the truth was, his acknowledgement wasn't enough anymore. I had spent my whole life waiting for something that would never come: validation, support, a real connection. I had to stop relying on them to fill those voids. "You don't get to rewrite history, Dad," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You can apologize all you want, but I need to see actions, not words. I've been carrying this family for too long." Brendan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and I could see the faintest signs of guilt in his eyes. But my parents? They were still trying to justify their actions, still clinging to the narrative they had created. I felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. I had set the boundary, and I wasn't backing down. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for protecting myself. Later that evening, as I walked back to my apartment, the weight of the dinner began to lift off my shoulders. The conversations had been tense, but in the end, I had stood my ground. I wasn't waiting for them to change anymore. I was choosing myself, finally. Nathan's text popped up as I stepped into my apartment. "How did it go?" I took a deep breath and typed out my reply. "Better than I expected. I finally set the boundaries I should have set years ago." Nathan's reply was quick. "I'm proud of you, Bella. You're finally taking control of your own life." I smiled at the screen, a sense of calm sweeping over me. Maybe for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to stand up for myself, to stop letting others define my worth. I wasn't just Bella Ambar, the invisible daughter, anymore. I was a woman in control of her own future. The next morning, the sun filtered through the curtains, casting a golden light across the apartment. I stood at my kitchen counter, sipping my coffee, when my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my mother. My stomach tightened at the sight of her name. It had been a full year since I'd had a real conversation with her. Nothing more than the occasional perfunctory holiday greeting or a text on my birthday. "Bella, sweetheart, I hope you're well. I'd love to talk when you have the time. It's been too long." I stared at the message for a long moment, trying to understand the shift. Was this genuine, or another one of her attempts to manipulate me into providing financial support under the guise of catching up? I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself. This was the moment I had feared, the first test of my boundaries. They were coming at me with sweetness, disguised as concern. I was no longer the naive daughter who would take everything at face value. I wasn't going to let this conversation be about them once again using me. I typed a response, my fingers hovering over the screen for a few seconds before hitting send. "I'm open to talking, but I want to be clear. I need this conversation to be honest, without any expectations or hidden agendas. Let's meet tomorrow." I hit send and immediately felt a mix of relief and anxiety. It was as if I had just set another brick in the foundation I was building for my own life. I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I was asserting control over my own narrative. The next day, I found myself sitting across from my mother at a small cafe near my apartment. She looked polished as ever, her smile wide and controlled, but something about her seemed off. Her usual composed mask was slipping, and I could see it in the way she kept adjusting her hair and glancing at her watch. "Bella," she began, her voice sweeter than I remembered. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened over the past few years. I know things haven't been easy between us. I didn't respond immediately. I just waited, watching her, trying to gauge if this was just another rehearsed speech or if she was truly ready to confront her actions. She continued, her voice a little softer now. I'm sorry for not being there when you needed us, for taking you for granted. Her eyes flickered toward mine, searching, as though waiting for me to fall for the same old routine. But I wasn't going to be manipulated again. I leaned forward, my gaze steady. You haven't been there, Mom. And I don't need you to apologize for things that happened years ago. What I need is for you to show up for me, truly. Not because you want something from me, but because I'm your daughter. I've built something from nothing. And it's hard to keep building when the people who are supposed to support you are the ones who tear you down. Her eyes wavered. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping her. I don't need your pity. I don't need your validation. What I need is respect. And if you really want to start over, we need to have a conversation where you don't ask for anything in return. She blinked, taken aback, and for a moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, a crack in her perfect facade. After a long pause, she spoke again. I want to make things right, Bella. I know I've made mistakes. I've been so focused on Brendan, on trying to fix everything for him, that I've completely overlooked you. She placed her hand on the table, her fingers trembling slightly. We've always wanted the best for you, but I see now that we were never there in the way you needed us. I felt a knot tighten in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I don't need your help fixing things anymore, I said firmly. I've built my life without you. I've learned to do it on my own, and that's something I'm proud of. The silence between us stretched, thick with unspoken truths. Finally, my mother nodded, as though accepting the weight of my words. I understand, she said softly, and I want to respect that. But I'm still your mother, Bella, and I'll always want to help in whatever way I can. I didn't respond right away. Her words were tinged with guilt, a silent plea for forgiveness. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever go back to the way things were. Not after everything I had been through. I let the silence sit between us for a moment longer before finally breaking it with a simple truth. We can try to rebuild this, but it's going to be on my terms. No more pretending. No more manipulations. If you really want to make things right, then you'll have to earn that trust back. She nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt like my words had weight. They weren't just empty promises. They were a declaration of my newfound strength. Later that evening, I texted Nathan about the conversation. It was a start. She's trying to be different, but I'm not sure it'll last. His reply was immediate. You're doing the right thing, Bella. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about protecting yourself. You've already shown them your strength. That's what matters most. I smiled at his words, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Nathan was right. This wasn't about cutting ties. It was about redefining them. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself for a family that only showed up when they wanted something. And as for my future, it was mine to shape, with or without them. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, emails, and calls. The usual hustle of running a fast-growing company took up most of my time, but there was something gnawing at me in the background. The conversation with my mother had opened a door I wasn't sure I was ready to walk through, but it was the door I had to face, because I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel the weight of my family's expectations. That night, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through financial records. Lamina's, yes, but also my personal records. I hadn't looked at them in years, not since that night when I'd added up everything I had given to my family, everything I had sacrificed to try and make them proud. It was time to face it head on. The first file I opened was from when Brendan bought his $22,000 truck. My name was there, at the top of the loan paperwork. Co-signer, Bella Ambar. I ran my fingers over the document. That was one of the first times I'd put myself second, making sure my family didn't fall apart financially. But when my credit was on the line, when my dreams were pushed to the back burner, none of them seemed to notice. I continued scrolling. There was the $15,000 loan for his failed startup, and another $8,000 for boat repairs after he crashed my dad's boat. And then the $4,500 for rent when Brendan was finding himself after dropping out of business school. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. This wasn't just about money. It was about the years I spent giving, trying to prove I was worthy of love. It wasn't enough. It never would be. The final total stared back at me. $61,500. That was the amount I had given them. and not once had I been asked how it felt to be stretched so thin. Not once had they said thank you. A bitterness I hadn't felt in years began to seep into my chest. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of carrying everyone else's weight. Tired of doing the work they should have done. But there was something else there too. Something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. I had built Lamina from the ground up. I had fought tooth and nail for every contract, every dollar. And yet, I had been stuck in a toxic cycle, allowing my family to drain me. I'd been their safety net, but they never once treated me like I mattered more than their needs. I clicked open a new document and began to type. The words came easily now, no hesitation. They were direct, simple, no room for misinterpretation. I was done pretending. To Mom, Dad, Brendan. Subject, family. Financial history. Dear Mom, Dad, and Brendan, I hope you're all well. As we discussed, I've been reviewing some of the financial support I've provided to the family over the years. I've attached a full breakdown of the loans and payments I've made on behalf of each of you, totaling $61,500. I want to be clear. I don't expect repayment, but I do expect acknowledgement. My company is not a family ATM. I will no longer allow family matters to bleed into business, and I will no longer be the one to financially support anyone who doesn't respect the boundaries I've set. I'm open to continuing a relationship with you all, but it will be on these terms. 1. I will not provide financial support beyond what is reasonable. 2. Family matters will not be discussed in the context of business. 3. Moving forward, all requests for help, whether financial or otherwise, will be handled with the respect I deserve. I love you all, but I will no longer allow myself to be taken advantage of. Best, Bella. I stared at the email for a long moment. The weight of it was heavy, but it felt right. This wasn't an attack. It was simply a declaration of self-respect. I didn't care anymore if they were upset. I didn't care if they didn't understand. I hit send. The email landed with the expected response. Mom was the first to reply. Her response was almost immediate, and I could feel the familiar sting of disappointment in her words. Bella, how could you say something like this? After everything we've done for you, we've always supported you. Do you really think this is fair? I exhaled sharply. The familiar guilt trip, the same old rhetoric. But this time, it didn't work. I was no longer the girl who would back down, who would swallow her anger just to keep the peace. I didn't respond to my mother right away. Instead, I turned my attention to Brendan's message, which came in just minutes after Mom's. Brendan, hey, I saw your email. $61,500? Really? You're turning your back on the family for that? You think you're the only one who struggled? His words stung, but not in the way they used to. This time, I didn't feel small. I felt strong, even though his message was laced with hurt and resentment. But I couldn't let myself be dragged back into that toxic spiral. I took a deep breath, typing my response. Brendan, I'm not turning my back on anyone. I'm simply refusing to keep supporting people who take, and never offer anything in return. I don't expect you to understand, but I'm done enabling this cycle. If you truly want a relationship with me, it starts with respect. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their guilt. Later that afternoon, I got a message from Nathan. How are you holding up? I smiled at the simplicity of it. I'm good. I feel like I've finally done what needed to be done. His reply came quickly. You did what was right, Bella. It's not about the money or the sacrifices anymore. It's about you finally choosing yourself. And in that moment, I knew he was right. I had been choosing them for so long, putting their needs before mine. But now I was choosing me. The next few days were a blur of emotions: relief, doubt, clarity, and exhaustion. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped, fearing another angry message or guilt-ridden plea from my family. But as the days passed, the silence began to speak volumes. My mother, my father, and Brendan were all radio silent. For once, I wasn't waiting for their approval or their apologies. I had sent the email, set the boundaries, and now it was their turn to decide how they would respond. The ball was in their court, and I wasn't going to chase it. I was about to dive into a meeting when my phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen to see a new email notification. The subject line read, Mom's response. My stomach tightened. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. Bella, I'm struggling with what you've said. Your father and I feel hurt by your email. After everything we've done for you, we never expected to be treated like this. We have always supported you, Bella. Your success doesn't change that. You don't understand how difficult it's been for us, having to constantly clean up your brother's messes and always putting him first because he needs help. I know we've made mistakes, but we're still your family. We just wanted to help you. Is that really so wrong? I don't know what's happened to you, but I thought we were closer than this. We always thought that we had a relationship based on love and trust, not money. Please reconsider. We're here if you want to talk. I read the email once more, my chest tight with emotion. I had expected this response. The same familiar guilt trip wrapped in a nice, neat bow. My mother still couldn't see the truth. That I wasn't upset because they had tried to help me. I was upset because they had used me. They had never truly seen me. I set the phone down for a moment, my hand trembling slightly. I could feel the old pull, the familiar guilt of feeling like I was letting them down. But this time, I refused to let it consume me. I had made my decision. I typed my response slowly, carefully. Mom, I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting the dynamic that has been built over the years, where I was expected to be the bank, the unpaid therapist, and the silent supporter without ever getting anything in return. You've never truly seen me for who I am, only for what I could do for you. I've spent my whole life waiting for you to recognize me, for you to acknowledge what I've built. And the truth is, I don't need that anymore. I'm choosing myself. I've learned that love doesn't come with strings attached. I'm done playing the role I've been given. I'm not asking for your approval or validation. I'm asking for respect. I've set my boundaries. I can't continue like this. And if you want a real relationship with me, it starts with you respecting those boundaries. I'm not expecting an apology. I'm just asking for honesty. You don't need to understand my choices, but you have to accept them. Love, Bella. I read the email one more time, then pressed send. There was no turning back now. I wasn't waiting for their validation. I wasn't going to keep trying to fit into their idea of who I should be. I was finally standing up for myself, and that felt freeing. The next few hours passed slowly, my mind racing with what might come next. I had no idea if my family would come around, if they'd try to rewrite the narrative, or if they'd finally accept that I wasn't the same person I was when I had begged for their love and support. When my phone buzzed again, I felt a pang of dread. This time, it was an incoming text from Brendan. Brendan, you think you're better than us now, don't you? You've changed. We're family, Bella. That means something. But you don't care, do you? You never cared about me. All you've ever cared about is yourself. I felt a jolt of anger, but it quickly shifted to disappointment. Brendan was angry, hurt, and defensive. His message was the last grasp at control, a desperate attempt to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. I responded quickly, my fingers moving with purpose. Brendan, this isn't about me thinking I'm better than you. This is about me finally seeing the truth. I can't keep enabling this toxic cycle. You've had every opportunity, but you keep choosing to live in chaos, and I won't be a part of that anymore. This isn't about self-interest. It's about self-respect. I love you, but I can't keep giving when I'm not getting anything in return. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of the words settle in. I wasn't just fighting for boundaries. I was fighting for a life that was truly mine, free from the constant expectation to be the one who always gave. Later that evening, I received a text from Nathan. How are you doing? I smiled at his message. Nathan had been there every step of the way, supporting me when I didn't even know I needed it. He never asked for anything in return. He just showed up. I'm doing better than I thought I would, I typed back. It's hard, but I feel free. For the first time, I feel like I'm not waiting for someone else's approval to live my life. Nathan's reply came almost immediately. You've got this, Bella. It's not about them. It's about you. And you've already proven that you don't need anyone else to define your worth. I felt a surge of warmth inside me as I read his words. For the first time, I truly believed it. I didn't need to keep waiting. I was finally in control. The next morning, I sat in my office, the city skyline stretched out before me. I opened up my email inbox and stared at the unopened replies from my family. The guilt that used to fill me whenever I saw their messages wasn't there anymore. For the first time in years, I felt at peace with my decisions. It was early the next morning when I received the email from my mother. I'd been bracing myself for the fallout ever since I sent my last email, but nothing prepared me for the sharpness of the words that hit my inbox. Bella, how could you do this to us? We've always been there for you. How can you ignore all the things your father and I have done for you? The things we've sacrificed to give you everything you wanted, and now, after all this time, you turn your back on us? You really think this is how you get respect? By throwing us out of your life? I don't know who you are anymore, Bella. You've changed. This isn't who you used to be. I don't know how to fix this, but we can't continue like this. If you want to talk, I'm still here. I stared at the words, feeling the familiar sting of betrayal, but not the way I once had. There was no guilt, no overwhelming need to apologize or make things right. I simply felt exhausted. I wasn't surprised. This was the same script my family had always followed when they didn't get what they wanted. Guilt, shame, manipulation. But this time it didn't work. I sat for a few moments in silence before picking up my phone. The next message I received was from Brendan. His text made my heart drop, but again, it was not unexpected. Brendan, are you really going to ignore everything we've done for you? You can't just cut us out like this. We're family, Bella. You don't get to throw us away. I didn't even have to think before responding. The words came out quickly, and my heart felt steadier with each one. Brendan, this isn't about cutting you out. It's about me choosing to live my life on my terms, without constantly being used as a safety net. I can't keep doing this for you. I've been carrying you and Mom for too long, and I'm done. I'm not turning my back on you. I'm just standing up for myself, and I expect you to respect that. I put my phone down, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease, if only slightly. I wasn't sure how they'd respond, but I knew I had done what I needed to do. The world would keep turning, and I would continue building my company, forging the future I'd always dreamed of. But just as I was starting to let go, another message came through, this time from my mother. Her response was a little less angry than the first, but still laced with the same desperation. Bella, I've been thinking about everything you said. I know we've made mistakes. I know we've put too much on you. I'm sorry for that. But we still love you, and we want to fix this. Please, let's talk. Brendan's getting married in a few weeks, and we'd like for you to be there. We just want to see you again, Bella. Not as the daughter who supports us, but as the daughter we love. Can we at least try to rebuild? I sat there staring at the message, my mind racing. A wedding invitation? This was their play, another attempt to draw me back in, to make me feel guilty enough to show up, to continue the old patterns of manipulation. They wanted me at Brendan's wedding, but not as a daughter who could set her own boundaries. They wanted me there to play my role in their narrative, the responsible, self-sacrificing daughter. I didn't reply right away. I needed to think. The truth was, I wasn't sure what to do. Should I go? Could I be in the same space with my family without giving in to the emotional pressure? Should I even try to have a conversation with them, or should I stick to my guns? I took a deep breath. The decision wasn't about their approval or my guilt. It was about my boundaries, what I could accept and what I couldn't. I wasn't going to show up to play the role they wanted me to play anymore. If I went to the wedding, it would be on my terms. I grabbed my phone and started typing. Mom, I've thought a lot about what you said, and I'm open to seeing you all. But I need to make something clear. If I come to the wedding, I will only stay for the ceremony and 2 hours of the reception. I will not tolerate any business talk or requests for financial support. I am coming as your daughter, not your ATM. And I'm bringing Nathan as my plus one. He's been my support, and I'm not going anywhere without him. It was the hardest message I'd ever written, but I knew it was the right one. I was setting boundaries, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel guilty for it. I sent it, and then I sat back, letting the tension in my shoulders fall. A moment later, my phone buzzed again. Mom, we understand. We'll respect your boundaries. We're just glad you're willing to be there. We love you, Bella. It was a small victory. And though I wasn't sure how it would all play out, for the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my life. I wasn't afraid of their judgment anymore. I had Nathan by my side, and I knew that no matter what happened, I had made the right choice for me. The day of the wedding arrived, and as I put on the emerald wrap dress I'd carefully chosen, I thought about how far I'd come. It wasn't about the wedding. It wasn't about Brendan or my parents. It was about showing up for myself. Nathan looked at me as I stepped into the living room, his eyes soft with admiration. You look incredible, he said, his voice warm. Thanks, I replied, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. Ready to face them? Nathan gave me a small smile and nodded. I've got your back. Together we left the apartment, the city skyline sprawling behind us. I wasn't just heading to a wedding. I was heading toward my future. One where my worth wasn't determined by the people who couldn't see me for who I truly was. The wedding was everything I expected it to be. grand, extravagant, and full of faces I barely recognized. The Peninsula Hotel ballroom was bathed in soft, champagne-colored light, crystal chandeliers dangling overhead, and every surface gleaming with polished perfection. The scent of fresh flowers and delicate perfumes lingered in the air as guests mingled, laughter and clinking glasses filling the space. I stood near the bar with Nathan, watching the crowd of guests swirl around us. He looked effortlessly handsome in his charcoal suit, his eyes scanning the room, always aware of the dynamics. I, on the other hand, felt like an outsider, a participant, yes, but one who wasn't quite sure if she belonged in this world anymore. "Are you sure you're okay?" Nathan asked, his voice low as he caught my gaze. I nodded, but the flutter in my stomach was undeniable. I was here, on my terms, with Nathan by my side, but still the weight of family dynamics lingered. "Yeah," I said, swallowing the knot in my throat. "It's just, I'm not sure what I'm expecting from this. I'm not the person I was when I first walked through those doors 3 years ago." Nathan smiled at me, a reassuring, steady smile that I had come to trust. "You've come a long way since that night at Margot Bella. You're stronger now. You're not waiting for their approval. You're here because you want to be." I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm settle over me. He was right. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. It had to be. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of white, gold, and soft vows. Brendan and Vanessa looked radiant, caught up in the whirlwind of their day, their faces glowing with the joy of new beginnings. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to feel a pang of regret. Was it possible to wish happiness on someone you once shared so much history with, yet so much pain? I didn't have the answer, but I did know that for the first time in my life, I didn't need to understand everything to be at peace with my choices. As the reception began, I checked my watch. 2 hours. That was all I was going to give them. I wasn't here to cater to their expectations or fall into the old patterns of being the dutiful daughter. I had already proven that I could choose myself, even if they didn't understand it. And as we moved toward the reception hall, I felt Nathan's hand find the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd like a steady anchor in a sea of uncertainty. It wasn't long before I spotted my parents. My mother, dressed in a champagne lace dress, her presence as polished as ever, looked over at me. Her eyes softened for a moment, but it was fleeting, replaced by the usual tension of trying to navigate a conversation with me while keeping up appearances. "Bella," she said, her voice dripping with that practiced warmth. "You made it." I nodded, my smile tight but polite. "Congratulations, Mom. It's a beautiful wedding." "Thank you," she replied, her eyes scanning the room, not quite meeting mine. "I'm so glad you could join us." I glanced at Brendan, who was already making his way over, a glass of champagne in his hand. His expression was guarded, but I could see the faint tension in his jaw as he tried to keep the peace. "Hey, sis," he said, his tone strained. "I'm glad you came." I smiled, the fake sincerity of the moment sinking into me like a weight. "Congratulations to you both." "Thanks," he said, before glancing at Nathan, then back at me. "Listen, about the investment opportunity I mentioned." Nathan's hand slid firmly to my back, a gentle but clear reminder of the boundaries I had set. I turned to Brendan, my voice steady but firm. "Brendan, today is about your wedding. Let's keep it that way." For a moment his face tightened, but then Vanessa, ever the peacemaker, stepped in. "Thank you for being here, Bella," she said warmly. "It really means a lot to us." I nodded, my smile genuine this time. "I'm happy to be here." I didn't add anything else. There was no need to explain, no need to get drawn back into their world of expectations and demands. As Brendan and Vanessa moved on to greet other guests, I checked my watch again. 1 hour, 15 minutes. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Nathan leaned over to me, his voice a quiet murmur. "Better than I expected." I nodded, though I knew the tension in the air wouldn't completely fade. This wasn't the last conversation I'd have with them, but it was the first time I felt like I didn't have to bend to their will. An hour later, my mother appeared at my side, her movements slow, purposeful. She was no longer smiling in the same way. There was something heavier in her approach. She looked over at Nathan, who stood nearby, then back at me. "Bella," she began, her voice quieter now. "Could we speak for a moment?" I glanced at Nathan, who met my gaze with quiet understanding. He didn't say anything, just gave me a reassuring nod. "I'll be right here," he said, his voice calm, grounding me. I turned back to my mother, and together we stepped away from the crowd. The sound of the reception faded as we moved into a quieter corner near the French doors that led to the terrace. I could hear the soft hum of conversation behind us, but it felt like a world away. "You look beautiful," my mother said, her voice almost hesitant now, her gaze flicking to my dress. "That dress is stunning." "Thank you," I replied, my voice steady, but I felt the shift. Something had changed in her. There was a long pause before she spoke again. Her shoulders seemed to slump slightly, as though she was finally letting go of the facade she'd held up for so long. "I know I haven't been the mother you needed, Bella. I know I've failed you in ways I don't even know how to apologize for, but I want you to know, I'm proud of you." I blinked, the weight of her words hitting me in a way I hadn't expected, but I didn't let my guard drop, not entirely. I had heard these words before, just never this honestly. "You've always been proud of me," I said, my voice soft but firm. "But I need more than pride. I need respect. I need to know that I'm not just someone you turn to when things get difficult." She looked at me for a long moment, her face softening, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something close to regret in her eyes. "I can't promise that everything will change overnight, Bella, but I want to try. We want to try. Can we just start over?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle in. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything I had hoped for, but it was a start, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. "I think we can," I said quietly, "but it has to be on my terms." My mother nodded slowly, her eyes glistening, but she didn't speak. Instead, she reached for my hand, squeezing it lightly. "I'll try, Bella. I'll try." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. We danced, we talked, we navigated the awkwardness of my presence, but there was a shift, a subtle shift in the air. I wasn't the girl who had once craved their validation anymore. I was the woman who had learned to define her own worth. As Nathan and I left the reception, I turned back one last time to look at my family, at the people who had tried to control me, to box me into their expectations. I realized that for the first time, I wasn't waiting for them to change. I had already changed. The next morning, as I sipped my coffee on the balcony, the city skyline stretching before me, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of my family's expectations, their manipulations, and my constant struggle to prove my worth had finally begun to lift. I wasn't sure what the future held with them, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice myself for their approval. I glanced over at Nathan, who was sitting beside me, scrolling through his phone. He had been a steady presence in my life, especially during the past few months. He never pushed me to make decisions. He simply supported me when I needed it most. He was the one person who didn't expect anything from me, and that had made all the difference. "How are you feeling?" Nathan asked, looking up from his phone. I smiled, setting my cup down on the table. "I'm good. I'm still processing everything. Last night wasn't easy, but it felt right. I didn't go there for them. I went there for me." He nodded, his eyes soft with understanding. "You've been choosing yourself more lately, and that's exactly what you need. You're not waiting for their validation anymore, Bella. You're creating your own path." I let the words sink in. It had been a long time since I had considered my needs first, and last night had been a pivotal moment in that process. I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval, least of all my family's. I had already created something incredible with Lamina, and that success was mine to define, not theirs. Later that day, as I sat in my office overlooking the city, I opened up my inbox. The emails from my family had been more subdued since the wedding. No angry confrontations, no desperate pleas. It was as if they were testing the waters, unsure how to approach me now that the old patterns had been shattered. The emails were polite but distant, each one trying to push the conversation in their usual direction. Brendan's email came in last. "Brendan, I know things have been strained, but I think it's time we move past all this. We're family, Bella. You've got your success, but family is supposed to come first. Can we just forget about the past and start over?" I stared at the message for a long time. The words stung, but not in the way they once did. There was no more guilt, no more desperation to prove that I wasn't the person they made me out to be. The truth was, I was done. I clicked on the reply button and typed my response. "Brendan, I've been thinking about your message, but the truth is, I can't just forget about the past. It's not that simple. I've spent years letting you and Mom and Dad take what I've given without ever acknowledging the toll it's taken. It's not about starting over. It's about me choosing to live on my terms. I can't keep carrying this burden for you. I've already made my decision, and I'm not going to keep enabling the cycle. I love you, but I've learned that love doesn't mean sacrificing my happiness for you. If we're going to move forward, it will be with mutual respect. I'm here, but I'm not going back to the way things were. Bella. I hit send and leaned back in my chair. The email felt final. There would be no going back to the old ways of pretending everything was fine. The boundaries had been set, and it was up to them whether they chose to respect them. Later that evening, as I sat with Nathan on the couch, sipping wine, I could feel the sense of peace inside me growing. The weight of family expectations was slowly dissolving. I had chosen myself, and that decision had opened up a new path, one that was mine to walk. You seem more at ease tonight, Nathan remarked, his voice soft as he looked over at me. I smiled, feeling the warmth of his words settle inside me. I am. I've been so consumed by trying to fix things with my family for so long, but I finally see the truth. They're never going to change, not in the way I want them to, but that's okay. I don't need them to anymore. Nathan reached over, taking my hand in his. It's not easy, Bella, but you're doing what's best for you, and that's all you can control. I nodded, squeezing his hand. You're right. I've spent too long waiting for their validation, for them to finally see me for who I am, but I don't need them to. I've built something on my own, and that's what matters. Nathan's smile grew, his eyes filled with admiration. I'm proud of you. You've come a long way. I leaned in and kissed him, feeling the warmth of his support and the strength of the decisions I had made. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, standing on my own 2 feet, no longer waiting for anyone's approval. A few days later, my phone buzzed with another email from my mother. It was brief and to the point. Mom, I've read your email and I understand your decision. I won't ask for anything from you again. But please know, I'm always here if you change your mind. I read the message twice. I didn't feel the same bitterness I had before. Instead, I felt a quiet sense of finality. My mother was still who she was, still trapped in her own need for control, but I had learned that I couldn't fix her. I had to stop trying, and that was okay. I sent her a simple reply. I appreciate you respecting my boundaries, Mom. I think it's time for both of us to find a new way to relate to each other. Let's start there. As I hit send, I felt lighter. This wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't an apology, and it wasn't a reconciliation. But it was a step in the right direction. It was a new kind of peace, one where I no longer felt obligated to fix everything for everyone else. The following weeks passed quickly. Lamina continued to grow, the success of the company buoyed by the newfound clarity I had in my life. I focused on expanding the business, mentoring young women in the clean beauty space, and finally making time for the people who truly saw me: Nathan, Rachel, Amanda, and the rest of my chosen family. It was the day before my 30th birthday when I decided to take another step forward. For the first time in my life, I was going to plan a birthday celebration on my own terms. No family, no expectations, just the people who had stood by me, people who knew the real me and still chose to show up. As I sat down to write the guest list, I realized that I wasn't just planning a party, I was celebrating the woman I had become. A woman who had learned that her worth wasn't tied to the approval of her family, her business partners, or anyone else. I was choosing myself, and for the first time, it felt like a victory. The night before my 30th birthday, I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, adjusting my dress. It was simple, an elegant black dress that felt comfortable but sophisticated, a reflection of the woman I had become. My reflection wasn't just about the external changes. It was about the internal growth, the strength I had found in myself over the past few years. Nathan was already there, making sure everything was in place. He was the only person who truly knew what this moment meant to me. As he adjusted the lights in the living room, I caught his eye and smiled. He had been my rock, my support, and as I stood there, preparing to celebrate my birthday with only the people who truly cared, I realized just how much my life had changed. I can't believe we're doing this, I said, a light laugh escaping me. Nathan stepped toward me, a knowing smile on his face. You've earned this. You've earned every part of it, Bella. The life you've built, the business you've created, and the strength to walk away from what wasn't serving you. This is your celebration. I nodded, feeling a warmth spread through me. For so long, I had waited for my family's approval, for them to see me for who I was. But now I no longer needed that. I had finally stopped waiting for them to validate my worth. I was already enough. The party itself was small but perfect. Just a few close friends, Rachel, Amanda, Catherine, and a few others from my team at Lamina. People who had been with me through thick and thin. People who had seen me at my lowest, at my most vulnerable, and still chose to be there for me. That night, we celebrated not just my birthday, but the journey I had taken to get here. Rachel, as always, was the first to raise a toast. To Bella, she said, her voice filled with admiration, for building something amazing from nothing, for finding her voice, and for choosing herself when so many others would have kept waiting. I smiled as the others joined in, raising their glasses. Nathan stood beside me, his arm wrapped around my waist, his support as steady as ever. To Bella, he echoed, his voice warm with affection. To the woman who finally decided she was enough. The cheers rang out, and for a moment I just stood there, taking it all in. The love, the validation, the sense of belonging that I had spent years searching for, and the realization that I already had it. It wasn't in the approval of my family or anyone else. It was in the people who were here, with me, on my terms. As the evening unfolded, I found myself lost in conversation with Amanda, my COO, who had become not just a colleague, but a friend. We talked about the future of Lamina, about the new initiatives I was planning, and about the women we were helping through the Lamina Foundation. It was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I still had to give. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about empowerment, about creating a legacy that wasn't defined by my family's expectations, but by my own values. Later in the evening, when the party had begun to wind down, I stepped outside onto the balcony. Nathan followed, his presence comforting and familiar. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, pulling me close as we gazed at the city lights below. "You've come a long way, Bella," he said, his voice soft in the night air. "I know," I replied, my voice filled with quiet pride, "and I'm just getting started." We stood there for a few moments, the city humming softly beneath us. I thought about everything that had led me to this point, the years of struggle, the heartache, the betrayals, and the triumphs. But more than anything, I thought about how far I had come. I wasn't waiting for anyone to show up for me anymore. I had already shown up for myself. The next morning, my phone buzzed with the usual flood of birthday messages. Most of them were from friends and colleagues, but there was one message that stood out. It was from my mom. "Bella, I know things have been difficult between us, but I want to say that I'm proud of you. I don't know how to make up for the years of distance, but I want you to know that I see you now. I see who you've become, and I'm proud of that. I don't expect anything from you, but I hope we can build a different kind of relationship moving forward." I read the message twice. It wasn't the apology I had hoped for, and it wasn't perfect, but it was a step. And in that moment, I realized that I didn't need her to change overnight. I didn't need her to apologize for everything that had happened. What mattered was that she had acknowledged me, and for the first time, I could say that I was open to moving forward on my own terms. I replied simply, "Thank you, Mom. I'm open to seeing where we can go from here, but it has to be different." The following weeks brought more growth for Lamina and more growth for me, personally. I kept my focus on the work I was doing, on the women I was helping, on the expansion of the business, and on the future I was building. There were challenges, as there always would be, but now I faced them with a sense of self-assurance I hadn't known before. My relationship with my family didn't change overnight, but I no longer felt like I was playing a part in their narrative. I wasn't their fixer. I wasn't their bank. I was Bella Ambar, and I was building something that mattered. And that was enough. As the year drew to a close, I found myself sitting in my office late one evening, reviewing the progress Lamina had made. We had reached new milestones, expanded into new markets, and the Lamina Foundation had helped hundreds of women get access to education and entrepreneurship resources. I looked out the window, the city lights stretching out before me. My journey hadn't been easy, but it had been mine. I had chosen myself, I had set my boundaries, and I had built a life that was true to who I was. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, I was excited about the road ahead.